Shoo. So glad you made it. I'm so glad you made it. Give me some loving. Give me some love. Give me some. Give me some love. Every day. So here we are. It's the biggest fight day I've seen in a long while. Big old fight day. So Jake Paul is fighting Ben Askren tonight. When I found out who Jake Paul was, I became a big fan of Jake Paul because of that man's hustle and his competitive nature and his business savvy. Not so much for the content on the channel, as much as like what Jake Paul does without the most talent is pretty astonishing. It takes a lot of hard work when you aren't overly naturally gifted at any one particular thing. So to be able to achieve what Jake Paul has achieved without being, like born into boxing or whatever, pretty astonishing, and that is a credit to the young kids' work ethic. Both those brothers are hustlers, man, and that's what I was impressed with from the get-go with those kids. And Ben Askren's making the same mistake he made when he was fighting Jorge Masvidal, just overlooking his opponent, not feeling like there's any chance in hell that he can get. Well, I guess he did say that he could, he could be outboxed, but I feel like he's going to get clocked again. Matter of fact, I think it's going to be a left hook from Jake Paul to his temple, to his right temple, to Ben Askren's right temple, that'll sleep him, and probably also in the first round. So just off gate, that's how that fight's going to go. And it's tonight, so we'll know really soon if I'm absolutely 100% right. And I can't believe so many people recently, because at first, man, all the money was on Jake and all the odds were on Jake, and then just because recently Ben Askren figured out how to hit some mitts, people are like, oh, well, maybe this guy. Okay, that Masvidal fight, by the way, is nearly 2 years ago now. We're 21 months away from when that fight happened. And, he completely overlooked him too, and then he got knocked the fuck out with a knee in 5 seconds. I think this is going to be quite similar tonight. This kid it's not by mistake that he is where he is right now. He said in a press conference, Jake Paul said, that he is one of the biggest prize fighters in the world. And he is. Right now, he actually is. Now, tonight, if he loses to Ben, that could squish all that. I don't know. I think he probably has a career in YouTube fights still, because YouTube is there's this channel called or this fight promotion through YouTube. They're going to have YouTubers fight TikTokers, okay? And what's the name of this place? It's called Social Gloves, and they are basically taking what KSI and Joe Weller, basically really what Joe Weller started, and then KSI made it bigger, calling out the Paul brothers and so on and so forth. And they're going to try to probably put on more and more of these events with YouTubers. It'd be great if we could sneak some of our YouTube community in there. I'd like to do it, or anybody else. We could somehow get a channel or two in one of those events. And they need to have, just on the very opening of the prelims, have one of the Boyd fights. We could be your charity, right? The bottom of YouTube. So that could be the charity. That these YouTubers, these kids they're going to have YouTubers fighting TikTokers, right? So But the TikTokers also have YouTube channels, so I don't even know. I don't know how that really works. I guess if you came over from TikTok, you're on one side, and if you're originally a YouTuber, you're on the other side. And then also tonight, Kelvin Gastelum is fighting Robert Whitaker in the UFC. That's not a pay-per-view event. Pretty sure that's just a regular old UFC fight night. Yeah, that's not a pay-per-view. It's not a title fight or anything, but it's Robert Whitaker used to be the champion in the middleweight division, so there's that. And Kelvin Gastelum did fight for the interim title when Robert Whitaker was hurt. There's that. Those are big 185ers. What's funny is that Robert Whitaker and Kelvin Gastelum weighed in at 185, and Jake Paul and Ben Askren weighed in at 191. Bigger fighters are actually in the Jake Paul Ben Askren fight. And Ben, man, he's dad botted out now, dude. Ben Askren didn't even win his last fight, which was against Damian Maia, and it was a grappling fight that, well, it was on his feet for a minute, but eventually it ended with Ben getting choked out by Damian Maia, who's, a jiu-jitsu specialist. He's a great grappler, but that's also Ben's strength. So even in his last fight, he lost in a fight that was mostly his actual strength. Ben Askren isn't a striker, and young Jakey hits him pretty hard. He can throw his arms, man. This idea that Jake Paul is came up through, I don't know, silver spoon in his mouth is wrong. They were, regular hardworking family, and the boys got their work ethic from their father. They went to work for their father when they were very young, working with him. And they're both athletes. And Jake's the younger one, man. Jake's had this, role model and older brother to beat on him and push him the whole way. Because I keep hearing that Ben Askren's been in competition, and that's going to matter. It may account for something, but it's not going to matter. It's going to be hands-only effectiveness. They're not going to let Ben hug on to Jake for like a minute up against the ropes. They're just going to let him hold on to him. The referee will break it up. So whatever grappling effect Ben can have on him will be pretty quick. It's not going to, unless Jake isn't active, it won't wear him down. Jake's active, he'll be scoring punches and moving around the ring. Kid's got more spring to his step. He's more a natural athlete, in my mind, than Ben is. One thing Ben does very, very well. Well, one thing in particular is the wrestling. He also can play the fuck out of some disc golf. But really, that's not going to, I don't think that'll come into factor in this fight, his disc golf abilities. Maybe it will. But it won't. And I just got to give it to the kid, man. He isn't, like I said, he isn't particularly blessed with anything. He just has a competitive drive to him because he's had haters his whole life, this kid. Like, people always have told him, you suck at this or whatever, you're cringy as fucking. But he has turned that into motivation, a great deal of it, and a great deal of money. So, got to give it to him, man. We have a fight tonight to watch. And Jake Paul is the headliner. We're going to watch them both. But, shit. So the kid who was on Disney just 3-4 years ago is headlining a fight against a former champion of an MMA organization. So it isn't the UFC that Ben Askren was a champion in. He was a MMA champion in a different organization where the talent isn't necessarily as field as thick with talent as the UFC. You may have some standouts, yes, but it isn't just how top to bottom top 10 UFC is. Really, just UFC is the crown jewel of mixed martial arts. And while there are a few exceptions to the rule, typically even those people end up either started in or at some point been in the UFC or end up coming over, like most recently Michael Chandler. And you wonder about those guys, man. Michael Chandler coming over in his, what, he's in mid-30s, 32, 33, maybe even older, man. Yeah, I think he might even be like 35 or 36. Because his quote was, "I'm not here for a long time, I'm here for a good time." And I think that was in relation to his age. That guy, not even really getting the bulk of his prime is going to be in his past. He may still be at his peak, but he's going to fall off quick. The fighting game, you pretty much fall off when you fall off. See it with like Tyrone Woodley, who is, albeit, we're all giving Tyrone Woodley like a round of applause for throwing punches in a fight, his last fight, right? We're like, wow, Tyrone really came out and went out on his shield, didn't he? But in reality, man, I mean, he went from champion to really not even competitive like that. He was actually on Logan Paul's podcast, Impulsive, a few days before the Kamaru Usman fight, where he got ragdolled 5 rounds by the current champ. And yeah, it's been shit since. So, and they were considering that man they were, at some point, the words came out of people's mouths that this is the greatest welterweight of all time, or could be. Funny how that, I ain't into that. Like, when it comes to fighting, it's different than other sports, like, the greatest basketball player of all time, that kind of thing. Man, the GOAT in fighting is a different deal. Different weight classes and different skills, different fighting altogether. Different types of fighting. That GOAT talk, I really don't think belongs on any given night. Any one of those very talented people could be a champion. Seriously. It depends on who you're fighting. If you're fighting the guy with the belt, you could be champion. If the guy who has the belt isn't fighting you, you can't be champion. Joe Rogan had a quote about fights. It's the one sport where, like when football, you go, it's going to be over in 4 quarters. They're going to run the clock out. And this thing, the Super Bowl is going to go 4 quarters. Well, a fight could be over like that. Scheduled for 5 rounds. There's no guarantees. And that's the wow factor. Oh my God factor. Knockouts usually. It's usually not like that unless it's a crazy like submission, and somebody pulls a fucking inverted triangle on you or some shit. But typically, it's the KO that makes you go, oh my God, and then it's all over. The thing's over that you were watching. It won't go. No guaranteed on this one that we're going to go 4 quarters or 9 innings or anything. There's no limit. I mean, obviously, ask Ben Askren. He's at the receiving end of the shortest fight in MMA history. Oh, man. So, I wanted to get on record before the fights. I was hoping my son would be here by now. We could just chit-chat about it, but he hadn't made it yet. So, and I think maybe my brother and nephews and nieces are coming. So we're going to have a house full of redheads tonight, if they all do make it, and watching the fights. Watching Jake Paul fight Ben Askren. Jake Paul is going to beat Ben's ass in. Jake Paul is going to beat Ben's ass in. Anyway, yeah, I think first round knockout, left hook to Ben Askren's right temple. Done. And as far as Gastelum and Whitaker, I really think Whitaker should win that fight. But Gastelum surprises me every time he fights. So I have no faith in Kelvin Gastelum to ever win a fight again. But he probably will end up being the middleweight champion. He actually is probably the middleweight champion right now is Israel Adesanya. Probably his toughest fight was against Gastelum. I mean, during this run of his. So, I don't know, man. Good night of fighting. Can't wait to watch. And maybe when they get here, if there's a lively crowd, we'll pop back on just regular live. Yeah. Food's here. It's time to get ready. Jake Paul, Ben Askren. Leave your comments. I'll go back and maybe watch the chat, see who you thought was going to win. Leave some comments down below about who you thought was going to win and why you hate whomever. If you don't care and you're indifferent, you should definitely let me know that in the comments below. Okay? And thank you so much for being here. I depended on you and you came through. I appreciate it.